Hello. Hello, everyone. Every time I do this, a bunch of other windows want to pop up. It's so irritating. So hopefully we'll not get cut off. I think I might have found a trick. Maybe. Though I'm never quite sure. But I think if I reboot my computer before I go on every time, just to make sure I everything's running good, it seems like that's helping. So maybe some of the issues are with the computer, not YouTube, but it's not the internet. I can say that for certain. But sometimes when I come in here and open up the laptop, it doesn't want to connect to the internet. So I have to reboot it. Sometimes it does, but then I wonder if it gets a little glitchy and maybe that's what's going on. So we'll see. But either way, I'm going to keep setting up that at least one backup stream every time just in case, and then pray I don't have to use it. But then if I do, at least it's there and as ready to go as it can be. Let's see, they make me watch commercials. Yeah, the commercials should only come on at the beginning during the live. And then after the live is over, but while it's processing, which takes hours and hours and hours, they'll put ads in the middle. And I have no control over that whatsoever. And then usually the next day is when I can go in there and then get rid of all those mid-roll ads. It really still, I know I say this every time, but it frustrates me how they make doing live shows or doing anything so much more difficult. And I see channels that usually never have ads in the middle of their videos because they'll do like sponsors instead. So they'll do their own commercials. Those are also being full of ads. So I'm wondering, have they not gone back and removed the mid-roll ads? Because what's happening is YouTube is just doing it automatically. And now I'm wondering, because I uploaded a short video, not the little 60-second one, but a shorter video than usual, because it's under 8 minutes. And when it's under 8 minutes, they don't give you an option of mid-roll ads. And it used to be you just had the ads at the beginning on a shorter video like that. But now what I'm wondering is if not having an option means they'll just go ahead and put mid-roll ads even on shorter videos, which I hope they don't. But if they do, again, that's something I have no control over. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. I mean, really what's happening is I'm seeing more and more this push. It's like as if they're not already making a crap load of money. This push to get more ads, more revenue for them. And while people like me and channels like mine, well, no, I say channels like mine, but channels in the same circumstances, because there's channels all the way across the board are being affected by all these changes, but they're all different types of channels. While some channels are profiting quite well off of it, mine just keeps losing more and more money every day, despite how much work I put in there. And I think part of it is because I won't intentionally put mid-roll ads or allow them. I'm wondering if that's what's happening, is all the channels who are allowing mid-roll ads are getting boosted to the top more. And it's like, I feel very strongly about standing on my principle on this, but it's getting to where more often I have less and less control over what they do as far as the ads go. And it's like, okay, this is so frustrating. So making less and less money all the time. Like seriously, for a while there, it was like about 30% of, I was down to about a third of what I once made just over a year ago. And now I'm down to a quarter, and it looks like it's just going to keep dropping. And it's like, how far is it going to go? Am I going to be down to making absolutely nothing? But they're going to keep putting ads on my videos so that they make all the revenue. I don't know. It's supposed to be a percentage. So with that said, the more a video gets watched, the more money we both make, YouTube and me, or the content creator. But Then again, if they're getting people to watch the ones that have all the ads all the way through it more than videos like mine where I don't want to have ads all the way through it, then yes, they're going to get a higher profit. So, and then we just keep getting demoted more and more while working just as hard. So, whatever. Anyway, hello everyone. Heidi here from Rain Country. God is good all the time. So, I came up with this topic just the other day. And those who follow me on other social media things outside of YouTube may understand where this may be coming from, because you might have seen a recent post. I didn't put it on YouTube. It was just a photo, just a post, because I figured YouTube would be the place it would draw a lot more hate than like Instagram, X, and stuff like that. See, if you can make more money, I personally will be okay and can watch again and ignore them. I appreciate that. I'm still really trying to not have to go that route. But one thing to know is for those who, because people ask, some people, I won't pay for it, but some people will pay for that YouTube premium or whatever it is so that they can not have to see any ads. And so people who have that wonder, does that mean you don't get paid for that? For the view that comes from someone with that? No, we still do. It just works out in a different way. I don't know how, but we still make money off of those who have that kind of account with an ad blocker, because see, YouTube's still getting paid from the person who's, paying for the premium. So then that gets spread across the board by views. And then of course, YouTube takes their own cut. So, whoops, I bumped the mic. I hope that wasn't too noisy. Anyway, so as you saw in the title, it's about being, the whole idea of being more self-sufficient. Tammy, you're just glitchy, period. I think that's what it is. You're just a glitchy person. Now, I don't know, but it's always helpful if other people let me know if they're being glitchy too. So far, I haven't seen this thing cut off. I don't see any weirdness on my end. So far it's looking good. Yeah, Deb, I've noticed that too. So I use a Brave browser and it blocks ads for free. YouTube keeps telling me it's not allowed, but it still works. Yeah, and I don't know if when it blocks ads like that, I don't know if the content creators get paid. I have no idea. I just know if you buy the YouTube, which I won't. I get tired of them pushing it on me. It's like, gosh, why would I want to pay you when you can't even, when basically you've demoted me to making 25% of what I once was making on my channel. So anyway, the idea, sorry, I keep getting sidetracked. The self-sufficiency and doing what needs to be done. So let me premise this on the post so I can explain what happened and why I felt the need to talk about this. So, and those of you who have farm animals especially will understand this, but this isn't just about farm animals. But a lot of you know, I have chickens, of course. And so the picture that I used in this particular thumbnail is of Maisie. Well, Maisie is one of the 3 chickens that have been on the docket for being taken out soon. I was hoping to wait and do all 3 of them at the same time that we take out whatever extra roosters we end up with that we don't find a home for. Well, Maisie she just pushed her limits a little too far because she's just a naughty bird. She gets into everything. She's been just laying off and on. She hasn't been a good layer. Neither has her sister. And I'll explain why I'm keeping her for a little bit longer. Maisie was more obnoxious, getting up onto my deck, pooping on the deck, pooping in the walkway, getting into different garden areas, pulling down, literally jumping up on pots that I have on shelves and pulling them down and spilling the contents everywhere. I found a fix for that, but then she managed to get into another new garden area that no other chicken, even the ones most likely to get in there, would get into, that I had fenced off, and was tearing stuff up. And that was it. And it's like, well, she's kind of a useless eater. I need to make room because I have 10 chicks that are growing. And pretty soon I'm going to need the space and the feed for them. And so Patrick just went ahead and took her out. I didn't know he was going to do it. He just did it. I was busy. I think it was the day I think it was Wednesday when I was in here doing the live. I think that was when it happened. Next thing I know, he's walking in. He goes, "Oh, I know what we're having for dinner tonight." And I'm like, "Oh, yeah, what's that?" And I couldn't see what he was holding. He goes, "Golden Comet." And I laughed. I thought he was joking. Oh, you're serious. So Maisie went into the solar oven with some wild rice and some herbs from the garden. And yeah, tasted pretty good. She was a little tough, but she tastes pretty good. Now the rest of her is being made into broth. So the thing is, so of course, I posted this on social media, and there was only one somewhat negative comment, but it wasn't meant in a mean way like some people can get. "Oh, I can't believe you would do that. That's so horrible." But this person made the comment that's like, "See right there, that's why I don't have chickens, because once I meet them, I couldn't eat them." And you know what? I get that, because I knew when I first got chickens that this was going to be a tough one. This was going to be tough for me. But the thing is, if a person is wanting to be more self-sufficient, and or somebody is looking at, I want to know where my food is coming from. I want to know whether or not this chicken that I'm going to eat, what has it been fed? How was it treated? Did it have a bunch of injections that I hope that it didn't have, that could be in the meat, and I don't want to get that in my body? If that's what you want, then yes, there's this certain connection you got to have your to your food. And whether it be growing a garden or growing animals for meat, I mean, our main purpose of having chickens is not for meat, it's for eggs. But obviously, when it's time to take them out, we're going to try to do the best we can to make the most out of them. Now, unfortunately, a hen, or any chicken, the older they get, the tougher their meat gets, but they can still be cooked into a broth and still, are fed to the animals, or, to the dogs or whatever animals you have. So, but I know it's healthy. And here's a trick though that I did learn. I should have done this with her. I thought maybe she was young enough that she wouldn't be that tough, but she was a little over a year old, so she was still a little tough. But the best way to do it is cook it really good, and then do the whole thing where you freeze it, the cooked meat, and then dehydrate it, and then you can take that and powder it up, or just crush it up and use it in other stuff. And I've done that with some really old hens before, and that actually worked. I was surprised. It worked pretty good, even with as terribly tough as that meat was. So I'm not saying it's easy, because I name all my chickens. I can't help it. I do. They all have names. Now, Maisie, I wasn't very fond of. So it wasn't that difficult. But we've had chickens that we've had to take out because they were just old. And I was very, very fond of those chickens. But here's the thing. If you live in a place like okay, I guess it wouldn't matter where you live, but I know there's a lot of people that have acres and acres and acres of land, and they just let their chickens live out their lives. And the nice thing, I would love to be able to do that, and to, as long as they have plenty of room to free range where they can get all kinds of food, and you're not having to constantly keep buying feed for chickens that aren't producing, sure, that's great. But we're trying to do all of this right here, right now, just in this little neighborhood lot. And so it's really important for us to be able to have chickens that are not only not getting into the garden and tearing up our other food, but and just causing, destruction and mayhem and poop everywhere. We need chickens that are going to produce. So I have 2 chickens right now that are not laying decent eggs. One isn't, just laying every so often, and they're really thin-shelled eggs. It's the same, she's the sister of Maisie, they're both golden comets. And then I have Ruthie, same thing. She just hasn't been laying in weeks. I don't know what's going on with her. All my Buff Orpingtons are laying great. Isabella, who's half Buff Orpington and half Antonio, once she got over being broody, it only took her a few days to recover, laying every day. Claire, who's 8 years old, laying every day, almost every day. And yeah, so I have chickens that are doing great, very, very healthy, laying lots of eggs. So I don't know what the deal is with these 2, and I've shared it before in the chicken video that I did, that it's like, well, I don't really know, I didn't raise these chickens. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they may have been injected with. Maybe they're just more sickly birds because whatever feed they were given in, when they were starting out their life or whatever, I don't know. And so, what I'm trying to say is I just don't have the space to keep chickens that aren't going to produce and are going to be consistently naughty. I have to replace them with chickens that are going to produce, that are going to give us eggs, or give us eggs that we can turn around and then sell to pay for the feed. So since they don't have as much area to roam and to catch bugs and stuff, they have quite a bit for such a small area, the way I work things out. That's why I have to have a lot of fencing to fence up all the different areas. But this time of year, they have a lot less area than they do during the winter, when they got pretty much all of the backyard and some and the front yard garden. They get that whole front yard garden area they can, go through. So they don't go through as much much feed then. But I'm going to have all these chickens, and they're going to be, I got the chicks already just are going through so much feed, and they're not ready to be allowed to roam in the yard area. So yes, again, there's just, you have to make a choice, and it's not difficult. So if it's important to you to know where your food's coming from, then sometimes that's a choice you got to make. If it's important for you to be more self-sufficient, that's just a choice you're going to have to make. It's going to happen. Either your chickens are going to die of old age anyway, or you're going to have to take them out. And sometimes it's better just to go ahead and take them out before they die of old age, because it, can be kind of difficult for them. Congestive heart failure is the most common way that an older chicken's going to die, and it's not fun. You can make it a lot quicker and a lot less painless for them. So these are the things that we have to weigh out. Now, I want to also make sure that I say this before I go on. I meant to say this when I started, is that no matter what you choose, it's got to be entirely up to you, and you should never, ever, ever, ever feel pressured to do anything the way someone else does. But I do still believe that if you're going to be a meat eater, that you should learn that there is a certain connection to your food, a connection that used to be, that's what everybody did. They raised their animals, they ate their animals. The animals had a good life. They were fed well. They were treated properly. And now they're going to become your dinner. So, is it hard, especially when you first get started into doing that, and before you can kind of be able to go, okay, like, I'm going to make this separation now. This is not a pet. This is a product. And I know I gave it a good life. Now it's time for it to finish out its job. Well, when you go down to the store and you buy a chicken, you don't know how that chicken was fed. When you go down to the store and you buy that beef or whatever it is, whatever kind of meat that you're buying, or even those eggs, you have no idea how those animals were treated. And you They may say that, oh, they're free of antibiotics or they're free of this, but you still don't know for certain what all they may or may not have been injected with or fed. So you're taking a chance that way. So it's really about what's going to be most important to you. So being more self-sufficient, it's not easy. It's not it's work. And it takes sometimes difficult choices. But isn't that what we have to deal with just about anything? If you're going to have a job, there's always going to be hard things you got to deal with in the job, that you have to earn money so that you can go buy that chicken at the store. So it's a balancing act. You got to decide which thing is more important to you. And so the same applies, though, to self-sufficiency, to anything else you choose to do. If you want to have a skill, you're going to have to take the time to learn that skill. And for some people, learning certain skills can come just like that. And for some people, it can be a little harder work. As a dance teacher and a martial arts teacher through the years, I had students that really struggled to learn certain types of moves of all ages. But what I often found is the ones, yeah, well, okay, let me go back. I also had the ones that everything just seemed to come easy for them. They could just catch on to stuff. But generally speaking, what I'd often see is the ones who were naturally gifted to pick up on stuff, they didn't seem to really appreciate the gifts that they had. And they really didn't do much with them. But the ones who struggled and struggled and worked hard to get past whatever it was that they were having an issue with and having a hard time grasping, and then one day they finally grasp it, and then they get that joy of accomplishment. They were the ones more likely to push ahead, and not just in dance, not just in martial arts, but in other areas of their life, because now they had that confidence. So the you know when you do that, when you make that choice, and it's hard, you got to work through those things. There is not only the sense of accomplishment, and you realize that I can do this. Now you know that you can make this thing or repair that thing. So when you have a garden, when you have farm animals, when you have whatever it is that you are working on, a rainwater catchment system, maybe some solar power or wind power or whatever it may be, there's always going to be work involved. It's like Zach always says, when you have your solar power, whatever source of non-public power that you're going with, you then become your own electrician. And no one knows that better than us. Well, I shouldn't say no one knows it better, but I can tell you we know this, right? Because we've had the solar power for quite a long time. And Patrick's the one that does the work and the maintenance on it and the upgrading. Uh, Same thing with the rainwater catchment. So you take on all of these jobs, but that is part of being self-sufficient. Now, I want to stress again that we all have to start somewhere, and we have to start with what's important to us, and we should never feel pressured into doing it all. We don't have honeybees. I still think off and on about doing it, but we would have to set up a good place for them that they could stay sheltered from the heavy rains. Around here, you just have to do that. Or you can, the rains would totally flood out their hives. And so we haven't gotten that far yet. We may someday. We don't have cattle. We don't have sheep. We just have chickens, and we have our gardens. Of course, we have our rainwater catchment. We have our solar power, but we're not 100% dependent on our solar power either. We still have public power. Right now, well, no, those lights back there, because of where the outlets are plugged into public power, but the lights I'm using here, my computer, my dehydrator right there that's running, it's full of stuff from the garden. It's all running right now on solar power because I can, because we're getting, it's that time of year, we can use it. But if I was doing this in the midwinter, when it was a constant short days and constant cloud cover and dark, dark, heavy cloud cover, I wouldn't be running the dehydrators on the solar power. Maybe the lights, these lights, and those string lights wouldn't take much solar power, but like I said, it has to do with where all the outlets are. But I could, if I really wanted to, just put in more extension cords, which then you're always tripping over. So, let me look at my notes, because sometimes I feel like I'm kind of getting off topic. I took all these notes, but I'm not really following them. Okay, so the thing I was going to get to, like the garden areas. So you're putting in a garden. Like for me, we started doing little bits of gardening, growing tomatoes and stuff years and years ago. Growing some flowers, and it was just kind of let's do this. Let's at least get tomatoes, because tomatoes are never good in the store. Let's grow our own tomatoes. So that was like one of the big things. And I wasn't saving tomatoes. I wasn't saving tomato seeds. I would just buy plants, the starts at the store when they'd come available every year. And then I'd put those in the greenhouse. Then one year I finally decided it's time for me to start growing tomatoes from seed, and find out how to do it. And it took, and yeah, though I always had a success of some sort, it was finding what would work best for me in growing those seeds, where to start them, how to start them. Do I follow everybody else's example? Which never was a great, I don't like the whole thing of one little tiny tomato plant and all these tiny little stars. I just throw them all in one thing. I do divide them by the type, like aromas, and this year I'm growing mortgage lifters and the purples and the black brandywines. And so they're divided up like that, just so I know when I go to put them in the ground, because I have a certain place I like the aromas to go, because they don't get as tall as others. And I don't want the taller plants there. I want the shorter plants there, so more light can get to the other plants. But at any rate, it took me a few years to really find the best system that was going to work for me for saving the seeds. But at first, it just started out with buying some starts. Then eventually learning how to save seeds and learning the best way to save the seeds. There can be several different ways to do that. Learning the best way for me to start them, and then move them to the greenhouse, and then transplant them into the ground. And everybody's going to do it different. And so it's okay to do things in steps. It's okay to do things your own way. This is important. You get a lot of people that try to convince people this is the only way to grow this or that. No, it's not. Because that way that they're doing it is probably not going to work as well for you, depending on your climate or your space or whatever. And your time obviously has to be very important. And so how many things do you have? How much time do you have that you can add so much on your plate? So right now, I only have the time or the energy or the stress level that I'm not going to worry about saving any seeds this year. That was me the first year that we really started getting, let's try planting a whole bunch of this stuff, a whole bunch of different things. Patrick, you should save those seeds. And I was like, nope, I'm not messing with that this year. I do not want to mess with that this year, because I'm not ready to take on that task too. Is it a hard task? No. But I knew that everything was going to be a little bit different according to what it was, and I'd have to learn about it. And I wasn't ready for that. At the time that I was doing that, I was still teaching dance and martial arts too. And I still had kids at home. So I didn't want to take on more than I was ready for. So you also have to balance it out according to your own stress level. And it really, I really feel for people who just feel so weighed down when they feel the need or the pressure to start being more self-sufficient. They start watching all these YouTube channels that have been doing it for years and years, doing all this stuff, and they've been adding to what they've done through the years, and they think they got to be just like that. And so they feel like they got to take it all on at once. You just can't do that to yourself. If you have the finances and the time and all that, and you feel like you can do it, okay, fine. But most people can't do that. And you should never feel guilty if you cannot. And you should never feel guilted into doing anything the way somebody else does. And that goes with the whole thing with the meat. So I wouldn't be one that wants to pressure someone into, you need to raise your own chickens, your own livestock, and you need to learn how to dispatch them and do that. That's got to be up to you. However, if you have a desire to do that, this is the point I'm trying to make. If you have a desire to do that, you're going to have to know it's not going to all be full of fun, cutesy stuff. There's going to be those hard things that you're going to have to face. Somebody had to do it with the meat that you bought in the store. Somebody had to save the seeds and then grow them and, the plants and harvest them and put it in the store. Somebody had to do that. So you have to decide, is that a job you want to take on? Or would you rather just continue to, do things a little more, not have that stress? So again, it's got to be up to you. You just have to decide what's important to you and face the reality that it's not all sunshine and rainbows. It's not all unicorns and Skittles. Sometimes it's tough. And I knew that when I got chickens. I knew there would be that point, and I wasn't looking forward to it, but I wanted to believe I was tough enough to do it. And when my very first chicken died of old age, I cried, even though she was my least favorite chicken out of my 7 Buff Orpingtons. I still cried. It didn't help that I happened to walk into the coop and watch her take her last breath, because there's that feeling of responsibility. Was I wrong to just go ahead and let her die naturally? Was it, there was all this stuff that I was going through. And now I believe that, okay, now I know what to look for, because there still will be chickens I'm going to keep until they're too old. Because if I get a good layer, I'm going to keep that good layer. I mean, I can see that. I can tell already, Isabella, who's a product of one of my Buff Orpingtons, and Antonio, she's an excellent chicken. Every day she seems to get better. I couldn't believe how quickly she started laying, and then how quickly she went into being broody, and then how quickly she started laying again after coming out of that. And she's sweet and she's cuddly. She's well behaved, and she's a nice heavy bird. So I want to keep her as long as possible, because she's going to be a good mama. She's going to, if I do get to a point where I'm just sticking eggs under her when she goes broody, I can tell she's going to be a good mama. And so I'm going to probably want to get more chicks from her, just like I want to get more chicks from Claire if I can. It's like I'm thinking about doing another hatching later in the season while Claire is still laying, because I don't know how much longer she's got since she's 8. I would really like to get more hens from her, because that's where Isabella came from. But again, in the process, I've got to take out all of the chickens. I don't have room. I'm going to have 20 chickens right now. 10 chicks and 10 adults. And that 20 chickens in our little spot, that's a lot. Obviously, all of the extra roosters will be gone. But hopefully I have at least 3 hens out of there that can replace the 3 that have to go. The one that's already was made into dinner. Let's see, ate on her one night, used the rest of the meat to make chicken Alfredo, and then now she's becoming broth. So I'm getting my money's worth out of her. That's for darn sure. That's important. As difficult as that may be, it's wasn't, like I said, it wasn't that hard, because she kind of irritated the heck out of me anyway. So I don't know. Let me look. I tend to get myself just to ramble, and then get kind of off. Okay, and so a few other points that don't have to do with raising the livestock themselves, other than the fact that when you start getting into doing different things for yourself, whether it be a garden, raising livestock, having some kind of rainwater collection, having some kind of uh, uh, alternate power source. There's always, I did already touch on this, but I want to say it again. There's always things that will need to be repaired or added onto. And so learning to be creative and learning the skills you're going to need to be able to repair those things yourself so you don't have to pay somebody else to do it. This is also important. These are also the kind of things you're going to have to consider, because it's not like you're going to put in a chicken coop and a chicken yard, put in a garden, and everything's just going to take care of itself. You know, there's always going to be work that has to be done. And I know sometimes people, there's going to be a point in our lives where it's like, I can't keep doing all of this stuff anymore. I realize this, but I hope that I can pass this education that I have on to others so that, my children, my grandchildren, maybe my great grandchildren, so that they can have this knowledge and skill to take care of themselves as well. Which is one of the main reasons I started my YouTube channel, was to pass on what I've learned while I'm still learning it. Because I am still learning all the time. Because we didn't get our first chickens until the year after I started my channel. And so it's been a learning process all through. And it's still a learning process. I learn something new all the time with the gardens, with the chickens. Patrick's thing is more the power stuff. So not that he doesn't do help with the chickens, because he's the one that does dispatch the chickens. I haven't got to that point yet, but I keep mentally trying to prepare myself to do that if I have to. I know I can. My biggest fear is doing it wrong and causing more suffering than need be. That's really my biggest fear when it comes right down to it. The having to dispatch them is one thing, but causing unnecessary pain is another. And I don't want to do it wrong. That scares me a lot. But at any rate, I can do, I can butcher, I can take care of that stuff. It's the dispatching part that's most difficult. But regardless, you learn as we go. We learn as we go, And it was really a blessing to have, hey, Patrick's birthday's in August too. It was really a blessing to have our friends that had all those chickens they needed to take out and asked us if we'd want to come help. I thought that this is perfect. We can help our friends, but we can also learn how to do this while we're helping them. So we're getting an education and we're helping them. And it was a good time. It was messy, but it was a good time. And that is very valuable. And so that was one of the last points that I really wanted to make, is that regardless of where you are in your life, regardless of whether or not you're disabled, you're getting older, and you're realizing that you can't do all the things that you once were able to do. Derek, part of my problem is I have really weak hands too. So that scares me too. Anyway, so remember that as long as you have the knowledge, you can pass that on. So we have to remember too that, if you're younger, just like our friends, they're actually younger than us, but they had knowledge that we didn't have that they were able to share with us. And so we all have something that we can teach to others. And so maybe we can't physically do a lot of this stuff. Maybe we could at one time, but we have the knowledge and we still have value because we can pass that knowledge on to others. And hopefully, if it's others in your family, or if it's younger people in your family, those people can then help you. Now they have this knowledge because you've taught them. Now they can help you by doing this stuff. So, just some food for thought, to think about that kind of stuff. And no one should ever feel that they absolutely cannot do something because of whatever life situation is. I think we can all find something that we can contribute to being more self-sufficient. And sometimes it is simply just teaching people what we know, what we've learned through our lives. Have you noticed they've added comments to the YouTube Shorts video? So now if there's text and video, you can't even read it. It's covered up by comment. Oh, onto the Shorts? No, I haven't seen that. That's weird. I'm glad, Java Mama. I'm really glad. Let's see. Thistle Moon says my grandmother was going to teach us how to dispatch chickens, squirrels, rabbits, etc. before she died, but we weren't ever able before she passed in 95. That's too bad. You know, that's always something too, is that, you know, you just never know, and then life kind of throws its wrenches at you all the time, and things never quite work out the way we thought. But thank God there's still, you know, because we've learned a lot from other channels on YouTube as well. Because I was following a lot of different homesteading channels before I started my own, and learned a lot from them. I hardly follow any of them anymore. I might be subscribed to some of them, but I don't have time for any of them anymore because now I'm doing my thing. But I have to say, you know, Danny and Wanda and Doug and Stacy, you know, back before I got my channel started in 2016, following those channels and several others really helped get me started in what we're doing here. Now, do we still do things our own way? You better darn bet, because we don't live in Missouri, we don't live in Mississippi. We live in a very different kind of climate than most other YouTube channels. There's hardly any of them that live in a climate like ours, unless they're in the UK. then they're a little closer in climate. Going to try making my own bread for the first time. Excellent. I love making bread. I'm not a big, huge fan of the sourdough thing. I'll do every so often, but I've been making my own bread since I was 15 or 16. Well, I say that like I've always been doing it. That's not true. That's when I learned. Let me put it that way. It's when I was learning how to make bread, and I think I just kind of followed my mom's cookbook that she had, her Good Housekeeping cookbook, and just did that, and then started eventually through the years came up with my own recipes, and then got to a point where I just make all my own bread. Not that I don't ever cheat now and then. And, you know, though I'll make hamburger buns if we're having a big gathering, a lot of times I'll just buy hamburger buns and hot dog buns and stuff instead of making them all. But anyway, but yeah, I mean, and that's something else too. That, you know, learning how to cook and bake for yourself, that's a self-sufficient thing too. And you don't have to go right into sourdough making. They're sourdough, yes, I realize like it's the oldest. I get that. And a lot of people are just really pushing the sourdough thing. But if it's not for you, it's not for you. Just like fermented food. A lot of people push the fermented food. I love some fermented food, but not all the time. So start with whatever you got. And I do absolutely agree with learning how to work with sourdough, or even just like using my fermentation starter, which is pretty much the same idea as sourdough. It's just a little bit different, but it does take more time. And you're going to have a little bit different flavor than using a dry yeast you can buy from the store. But what if you can't get that dry yeast from the store? What if it's not available? Well, knowing how to make a sourdough starter was super easy to do. And then start working with that sourdough and learning all the techniques. I was like, when I see all this stuff now, it's like everybody's got these, well, you got to have, you know, it's like this big scientific, you know, formula. And it's like, oh, good grief. That's just going to scare people away from making sourdough bread. Just keep it simple, for crying out loud. And you learn as you go. You start finding, you know, maybe if I had a little butter to this, or maybe if I use milk instead of water, or water instead of milk, you know, you'll find what kind of textures and types that you like. I know, not that there's anything wrong with learning about that stuff, but sometimes I think when people start just like, well, it's got to be this, this, and this, and you got to have, whatever, down to the microscopic little ounce, fraction of an ounce of so much. Ah, people they just get overwhelmed. And it's like, I can't, that's just too much. So keep it simple. Winemaking, the same way. I was scared of it for a while because you'd see stuff and people just make it sound like it was this big, complicated process. Come to find out, it's actually pretty simple. It's actually really simple. And so I show people a simple way. If you want to go and do all the, I got to disinfect every little thing and I've got to add this and add that and add this too. You do what you think is best. I keep it simple and as natural as possible. Hello, Heidi. I was able to make it to your live. I didn't see physical issues sidelining well, my desire to garden, preserve food, sowing, etc. But I'm doing what I can. Just not as much. That's exactly it. Doing what you can. Tyler says, back had to help a friend borrow our trailer. Well, that's nice of you, Tyler. You mean you're actually a nice guy? Sourdough starter doesn't work in my house. It's too humid. So that's the thing is there's always going to be issues and no one should ever make anyone feel like you're doing it wrong if you don't do sourdough. I played with sourdough. I do some of the stuff now and then, but like I said, I prefer using a dry yeast. I still love making my bread from scratch, but I still love using a dry yeast, but I know how to use my fermentation starter if dry yeast is not available, which I keep a lot on hand. So there was something else I was going to say. So I'm going to keep going because I have more to this topic, but it might be a separate video on its own. Can't make friendship bread either. I forgot about the friendship bread. Didn't they used to call it like an Amish friendship bread or what was it? Isn't that the one that's more sweet? It seems like mom did that when I was a teenager. I think I did that once too in my 20s, late 20s. I don't know. I can't remember anymore. Does it have like cinnamon or something added to it too? Like it's kind of more of I know it's sweeter or fruit. I don't know. I know there was something with a fermented fruit added to it, a fruit cocktail. That was pretty good. Yeah, I have Tara. I have or Tara. I hope I'm not pronouncing it wrong. I have a playlist just on bread making. Oh, Tyler. Okay, so this is basically the part 2. So if I do make another video out of this will be the separate standalone video. 6 to 8 weeks. I'm almost 2 months ahead now. I'm not trying to get that far ahead. It's like, how is this happening? I don't know because I don't feel like I'm pouring that much more time into my channel or into shooting videos. But so it's just this should be quick. So why bother? And it's not like I've never talked about this before, but why bother? Why bother going through learning the skills or having to face the hardships of taking out an animal when you need to, or building a fence, or dealing with a garden that maybe half of it or maybe all of it fails and then you got to start all over again? Why bother? Why bother with trying to be more self-sufficient? I don't like to call everything homesteading. I just say more self-sufficient. Not every, and I say it more self-sufficient because not everyone, there's not one single person that is 100% self-sufficient, and nobody should ever make you believe that they are. Some people try, but then they forget to look at all the other things in their life that they're dependent on somebody else or the store for. But there's always steps that we can take. So why bother? Well, let's not even take into consideration the constant fear mongering of, how the whole world's going to hell in a handbasket. And sometimes, yeah, it really looks that way. And we know that if you're a believer, you know that eventually it will, almost quite literally. So there's no stopping that. But there's real life events that happen all the time and always have and always will. So I remember, was it the 70s or the 80s? I think it was the 70s that there was the massive fuel shortages. So we have fuel storage and we cycle through it. In fact, Patrick he was waiting for the fuel prices here to drop because everybody's talking about, oh, the fuel prices are dropping everywhere. Not here. So he kept waiting, but it's like, okay, we need to refill up all the tanks again because it's getting a little too low. But having that fuel storage means that if there's a shortage, we got fuel. We're good. If the shelves go bare for whatever reason, there's a massive town-wide power outage or some kind of natural disaster that's preventing the trucks from coming into the stores and restocking the stores. Remember, your stores only hold enough food to last your community for 3 days. And in any kind of event where the trucks can't get through because you just had a big blizzard and now your town has become an island, that stuff's going to go in 24 hours. It's not even going to last 3 days because people are all going to run to the store and they're going to buy up everything. But if you've got your own food storage, at least to get you through a few days, a week, a month, then you're good. You're fine. You don't have to have now that stress of dealing with that and fighting the crowds to get that last package of toilet paper or gallon of milk. There's main breaks that can happen and the city has to shut your water off, or water contamination where people are all flocking to the store. What's the first thing that's going to disappear from the stores within an hour? All bottled water is gone. And it happens all the time, all over the place, because things just happen. There's sudden life changes. It could be divorce. It could be a death in the family. It could be a job loss. It could be a sudden illness that you didn't expect, or, you fell and broke your back, broke your leg, and now you can't work. But now you're covered because maybe you paid ahead on your PUD bill, or you've got some kind of alternate power system set up if they come and shut your electricity off, which hopefully they won't do that because then you got to pay to have them reconnected. Any of that, you're taken care of. For me, I always like to be quite a number of months ahead on the power bill just in case something silly happens. Never had to fall back on it, but like I said before, I've shared this story where one year, see, I used to have back here, instead of these cabinets, my main desk for dance, martial arts, where I'd have my roll sheets and different things, was right back here. And you can walk through this dance room and go through the sliding glass door out to the mailbox. So I had written the check for the PUD, written the check for the water, always paid them on the same day, went thought I had stuck them in the mailbox. So I'd commonly walk through this room and go stick them in the mailbox, stamped and everything, ready to go. The next month, I get a late notice showing that I had not paid the month before. I'm like, I know I paid. What's going on here? I don't understand. Well, I just went ahead and took care of it, sent off some more checks, because I'm like, maybe I did forget. And I don't know how long later it was. I came in here and found I'm going through my desk drawer, getting ready to start dance. And here are the 2 envelopes with the 2 bills. Instead of making it clear out to the mailbox, who knows where my brain was? I stuck them in a drawer and forgot about them. I mean, I meant to go out there, but probably because I stuck other things in that drawer, other types of paperwork, It was just, how you stick something in the fridge, it's supposed to go in the cupboard. It was that kind of thing. So being ahead on my bills means if something like that happens again, I don't have to worry about getting a late notice or possibly have my electricity shut off or my water shut off. Of course, they usually give you another whole month. So I would have been okay, but it's just like, what? I mean, I hate that so much. I think, just, So, so yeah, sometimes it can be the silliest dumb thing that, but if you're prepared, you've got what you need to cover you in those instances. These things happen to anyone all the time. I mean, I've got family members I really wish would listen and understand this point. Maybe someday they will. Um, let's see. So sudden life changes. Oh, knowing what is in your food. So I kind of covered that previously with this is why we grow. One of the reasons why we grow a garden and raise our own chickens for the eggs is because we know what's going into this food. We know how it's being raised. And do we grow everything we eat? Absolutely not, especially not in this little area, but we do the best we can. And plus, that's something we can fall back on if we can't get the food from the store, which is why we're going to put up that food. All my beans, when I start getting all those beans, I got a lot of beans planted this year. They're going to get canned. Well, they're probably whatever we don't use right away, it's going to get canned. I want lots and lots of jars of green beans because that's my favorite way to have them is canned. I might like to dehydrate a lot of stuff, but I really like my green beans to be canned. Freezing works too for the green beans. So yeah, knowing where your food comes from. That's another reason why some people would bother. And then having the knowledge and skill, to take care of yourself and your family. So a lot of these points were already covered in the first part of this video, but I wanted to kind of condense it all as to this is why. This is why a lot of us have chosen to delve into this lifestyle. Some people are much farther along. Some people have lots more land and lots more animals and things that they're doing. Like, Tyler, he's got his goats with the milk and all that. So he's making cheese and yogurt and everything. I love that. I think it's great. We're not there. We may never be there. I don't know. I would much rather at this point, I would much rather be able to find somebody else that's doing this stuff and be able to barter and work with them. But that's something too. That's something that you can do as well. I have some things on auto pay, but I actually I don't know if you can you probably can set up your public utilities and your water bill to do that. I just always am ahead. I'm actually close to being a year ahead, and it's been like that for years. It's kind of like a little savings account that I don't earn interest on, but banks don't pay a lot in interest anyway, so what does it matter? So we can send you a goat or two. No thanks. I don't need that kind of headache right now. I've decided that if I was going to do any dairy animals, obviously we couldn't do it here. We just don't have the space. But I'm looking at either the Icelandic sheep or maybe even, I think they're probably really expensive to get, but I would love to have maybe one of those mini cows, milking cows, because they won't take up as much room, but they can put out quite a bit of milk. Probably be more than what we could use, even if it was just one. But I know there's all these things you got to consider to keep that milk coming in. But yeah, I don't know that all utility places would do that. Thistle Moon, ours does. So, because like I said, I've been doing it for years, and gosh, I don't even know how many years. It all kind of started back when we decided to pay off the house. I decided, okay, when we decided to really crack down and start putting all our money in paying the house, there were several things I wanted to do first, and that was getting payments ahead on the house, getting payments ahead, getting ahead on our PUD, it was just an estimate, really. X amount of dollars per month is approximately what we use with the solar power. If I do it like, oh, what is the word I'm looking at? Like an average over the year, because obviously less in the summer, more in the winter. So I do an average and I just pay that same amount every month. But for a while there, I haven't done that in a long time, because for a while there, I was paying like that much, maybe a couple times a month, or paying double that, until I got myself a year ahead on the public power and a year ahead on the water, going by the average estimate. And so I just kind of keep it there and just keep paying that same average every month all year round. So yeah, I mean, whatever your bill is, whatever it is that you have that is important, that you need to survive, your water, your energy source, whatever it is. And even if you are totally self-sufficient as far as like electricity goes, you still need to, and hello everyone that's been coming in that I haven't had a chance to say hi to. Zebu. Okay, maybe some people would get that reference. Anyway, I think it's supposed to be Cebu. Cebu. It's something totally different. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Anyway, I made a goof. But yeah, it's just either finding a way. Okay, no, what was I saying? Even if you were totally self-sufficient, like you're completely off grid as far as, utilities go. Anything can go wrong with that solar power, with that wind power. Your wind turbine could just, self-destruct. If you're doing hydroelectric and you're depending on a creek or a river to, provide your power, well, fish can get hung up in there and then you get problems. You got to go take care of that. There's always something that you have to take care of. And I know this because there was a guy south of town years ago that was selling he was totally off grid. He had, he had solar, but he relied mostly on his hydroelectric. So he was telling us about some of the issues he would have sometimes with the fish, and he'd have to go clean out this, whatever. I don't know. It was a long time ago. I'm like, man, that's a lot of work. But he was completely off grid, and he had both, so he could do solar more in the summertime, and then in the winter he depended more on the hydroelectric, because that's when there's a lot more water going through there. Well, especially in the spring, but anyway, excuse me, my throat's starting to itch now. Let's see. Let me double check. Knowledge and skills. I think I covered all my points. I may or may not make a separate video out of that, but that first part especially, I wanted to cover. And so I hope that all that made sense. I didn't quite follow my notes the way I had it planned. I just kind of got on here and started rambling like I do. But yeah, I mean, it's not all fun and games. It's not all easy, but it's also at the same time, it's very rewarding. It's like having children. Children aren't always all fun and games, and grandchildren too, for that matter. But it's rewarding, and you wouldn't take it back for anything in the world. Achumamu, achumamu, achumamu. That's one of my favorite. What do they call it? The silly songs or whatever. Yeah, we used to have all that. Let's see. What did I miss here? Oh, what did I miss? Taxes that kill me. Oh my gosh. Insurance. Oh, the home. And okay. So a lot of you might know that we got rid of our homeowners insurance since our house has been paid off since 2014. We kept it for a while. Well, clear up until 2020. We kept it. I think it was 2020 that it was either 2019 or 2020 was like, we're done with you guys. And it was Allstate. And you're not in good hands with Allstate when it comes to homeowners, especially. So I came across a recent hearing or something, just kind of stumbled across it, where these Allstate guys were just being totally grilled for how they scam their customers. And I'm like, that's about what we figured. So if you don't have to, like if your house is paid off, I think homeowners insurance is an absolute scam and unnecessary, because they will find every way in the book to not pay out. Now, some insurance companies I do know are better than others. Most of them, especially Allstate, when it comes to homeowners, just something different if you can. I wouldn't trust them. See, they've paid 3 to 4 times to have my house rebuilt after a loss. Well, good. That's good. I'm assuming it's not Allstate, though. I've heard there's others out there that are better, but Allstate will totally scam you. And yeah, we got sick and tired. Yeah, State Farm, I think I've heard good stuff about. Patrick's dad had State Farm for his health, a lot of his health insurance, and I think they took care of pretty much everything. And he had a lot of huge bills, in regards to being flown out, having to be airlifted from here, and the hospital bill here and the hospital bill in Port Angeles. And yeah, just be very careful about who you get insurance with. And they were pointing out that they were not paying people what they were figuring. Yeah, they were telling their adjusters, if their adjusters figured too high, they would tell them to delete certain things and to adjust their whatever their estimate. So there was that one lady who hers 2 different adjusters had it at $400,000 to $500,000, and they were only going to pay her $4,600. They're $46,000. Which either way, that sounds like a lot, but because of the damage, it should have been a lot higher. And they kept, okay, we're going to take you off this case and we're going to pick someone who will be more compliant and do what we tell them to do. Because we don't want to pay that while they're raking in the big bucks. I have eternal life assurance and others for temporary health concerns while we're here on earth. Right. The State Farm in my town tried to scam me by not covering what they should have. Fought it and won. Good. Got my roof. Yeah, so ours was a roof issue. So we ended up having to take care of it ourselves. And then when they went ahead and raised our insurance anyway, even though we didn't use it, it's like, okay, we've been paying them for 30 years and you can't be there for us when we need you. And then you still go ahead and raise our insurance. We're done. You're done. So yeah, we'll never go back to them for house insurance. In fact, we still have them for auto because they have actually taken good care of us on the auto. It's like, it's hard to believe they're in the same company because they've always been good to us with the auto. But I'm kind of thinking about possibly going through the trouble of maybe getting a different auto insurance just to get away from Allstate altogether and see if maybe we can get something lower and save us some more money. Everyone with an income throws $100 in the kitty for future repairs. There you go. Yeah. And see, that's important too. If you're not going to have insurance, is make sure you have backup plan. I mean, that's the way it used to be. People had backup plans. They had their kitties that they kept their emergency funds in. They had people that would help them rebuild. Yeah, so all that kind of stuff. Anyway. Oh, I know there was one more thing I was going to say. It's not related to my topic, but I got to say this because I don't always think to say it, but I get people that, and I don't want to ever sound like I don't appreciate it. But a lot of times people will send me videos video links. Oh, you got to watch this, you got to watch that, you got to see this. And it could be about anything. It could be some Bible teacher, it could be about, issues with YouTube, or it could be about homesteading, or it could be about gardening. I mean, all the time. And a lot of times I don't reply simply because I keep thinking that, well, maybe if it really interests me and I think it's something that I could really glean something from, I'll try to make the time. But then will I remember when I do have the time? Especially when so many people are always sending stuff. Like when it comes to like Bible teachers, pastors, preachers, teachers, we're very particular about who we listen to, and we might give somebody a try. I mean, how are you going to find out if you even like them, if they're, or how strong, how, solid they are, unless you don't listen to them. But a lot of it is just like, I just don't have time for all this. I just don't. I mean, when everybody's throwing stuff at you. So I hope nobody thinks that I'm being rude, or that I'm, what's the word? Ungrateful, for people sharing stuff. But I just have to say, if you don't hear from me, the reason a lot of times I don't reply is because I think, well, maybe I will get a chance and then I can reply and tell them what I think. And then, of course, I forget. But I had somebody recently email me one of her favorite pastors, a specific sermon, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, yeah, maybe if I have time. But because I didn't like email her back immediately, and 2, 3 days later, she's worried that she offended me. And so, no, sorry, I just, yeah. So I'm just letting people know it's nothing that you guys did wrong, or I'm not trying to be rude. I just don't have time to watch every single video link. And then when people just send me a link, whether it be in a comment or an email without any kind of description, and I have no idea what it's about, I just toss those. Because if I can't even at least have an idea what it's about, I'm not even going to bother clicking on it, because I don't know. It just goes. I have to. This is some of the areas where I have to protect my time, and I have to decide what's, you know because my time is precious. And it's because of this, I've talked about the whole time management thing, is because I've had to learn these things, and I'm still always having to learn and change things as life always keeps changing. Things get different. So I got to change my schedule, and I have to be very protective of my time if I don't want to completely lose my mind, or be totally, you know, stressed out with everything that's on my plate. This is how I bring my stress levels down, is by simply cutting out things that I just don't have time for, and focus on the things that are most important to me. And so just, I hope people understand that, I'm not, I've kind of finally, Patrick has told me for years that you need to stop feeling like you have to reply to every single comment. And I'm like, I know, but he goes, there's channels that aren't even as big as yours. They probably don't get as much comments as you do, that don't reply to all their comments. To it, I said, but I feel like I should. I still feel like I should, but sometimes I don't have anything to say, so I just try to give everything hearts. And sometimes I don't see the comments, but again, I'm getting better at not feeling I have to read. I've been better about it for a while, but still working on getting better at not having to feel like I got to reply to every single comment. See, State Farm here wrote us a contract, backdated it, and then canceled. What? They didn't even tell us? We found out through. So, it makes me wonder. Like, one person says State Farm's really taking good care of them. Others say absolutely not. Maybe somebody else could say the same thing about Allstate. I don't know. I've heard horror stories on all sides, but I've heard good things too. Anyway, sorry, I'm reading the comments. So if somebody says something about rambling, I don't know if they're talking about me, but yeah, I do that. That's that's the joy of having the live show. I can do that. And then that's also the joy of being able to take the video and then condense it down and take out all the rambling and just get to the point, and then make a separate video for those who don't like my rambling. They might not have been talking about me. I just saw the word rambling and I thought, oh, are they talking about me? Because I am. And that's what I do. I think giving hearts is more than enough unless there's a specific question. Yeah, if there's a specific question and I can answer it, I will. If I can't answer it or I can't answer it right away because I need to go look something up, I'll try to do that when I remember. I don't always remember to go back and deal with it. Or sometimes people ask questions that I don't really understand what they're asking. And so sometimes I'm just like, yeah, I don't know what that means. So I'm just not going to deal with it. My hubby said I chased rabbits when I talked. That's me, Linda. We can just go chase rabbits together. We could all just chase rabbits together. Now, will we go down the same rabbit trail though? That we might all end up in different places. We'll all get lost. Of course, if we're all talking, we should still be able to hear each other and then go by sound. Oh dear. Ugh, my throat's starting to really itch now. But hey, it's not been too bad. I couldn't believe it on Wednesday when I made it through that whole show without one itchy throat, one cough, or one having to clear my throat. Terry says she'll join you in chasing rabbits. Yay! I need to get a stuffed rabbit in here now and start shaking that around. Okay. I think I've made all my points. Now it is just definitely rambling and chatting just for the fun of it. Not that I don't have other things I can do. I did finish editing the video I needed to edit, so I'm good there. I think the only thing I really got to do is go out and water the stuff in my greenhouse. My maters. Man, my tomatoes are to that point now. You know how your tomatoes seems like they kind of grow slow? Oh, well, I don't know. Everybody's probably different depending on their climate. And then all of a sudden they hit this certain point. Well, I'm sure it's probably also because at that certain point the weather's warming up and they really start growing. So I love it. I should start seeing flowers coming on them pretty soon. A rabbit to go with the doll hands. I don't have them here. I didn't bring them over here. I had to remove everything off my table. I had to take my lights, my computer. I've got the computer kind of propped up on a few books to make it sit a little higher. I got my mic. I've got my elderberry tincture. I've got all this stuff in here. And so I had to I had to remove everything. Normally I just keep all this stuff in here. I had to move everything out of here. Oh, and I have 2 end tables. They're just like TV tables, wooden ones that I got from my mom when she passed away. And these work really nice to have along the side so I can set stuff on these. So all this stuff had to be moved because we had a second birthday party for Jace here for family that wasn't able to make it to his other birthday party. So we did that on Friday. And I still have the balloons up. I got balloons up there, some other decor, balloons laying on the ground, but yeah. So see, we have cucumber plants that the leaves are getting brown, light brown spots. Help, please. What is it? Somebody's told me before when my squash leaves have a tendency, and cucumbers are the same. Mine usually get the white on them, but they usually keep growing and doing fine. And so I don't worry too much about it. My tiny tomatoes have fruit on them. Lots of fruit. Yay. Uh-oh, what happened? Did you guys lose me? Okay, people. I'm going to have to get off here anyway, but I didn't see anything. Okay, sorry. If I am still live. Okay, Tyler says still here. No, you're good. Okay. Okay. Okay, Deb, it's you. First it was Tammy. Now it's Deb. Anyway, I am going to have to get off here anyway. go deal with my stuff. It's me. Damn it, you're still here. They got me. Should one cut the bottom leaves on the new potted tomato plant? I always pinch them off. It's better to do it. Well, you can use scissors. I've had a lot of people say not to use metal, but you can. I always just pinch them off. So I just pinch off the bottom leaves, and then as the plant gets bigger, again, mostly you don't want your leaves touching the ground is what I go by, but then you can keep working your way up so that all the energy isn't going into the leaves, especially when it starts putting on fruit. Then you can have the energy going more into the tomatoes rather than into the leaves. So, but they still need some leaves. They got to be able to collect the sunlight. So obviously you don't want to remove all the leaves. Let's see. I have a video, by the way, on my main channel on tomatoes, from seed. I think I did it last year. No, it wouldn't have been last year. I wasn't growing tomatoes last year. So 2 years ago, where I was showing how from seed to, maybe I did do one last year and just talked about it and used video clips that I'd taken the years prior. But, including how I tie them up, because I like to tie mine. I don't use cages or anything like that. I just tie them up I always got some kind of yarn around here. Tomatoes with skinny legs, leggy tomatoes. Usually when they get leggy, it means they're not getting enough direct light. And so they're growing quickly to try to reach for the light. Yeah, I wish I could remember what it's called. I think it was growing tomatoes from seed to harvest. No, I don't remember what I called it. You just put growing tomatoes in the search and rain country and see what that pulls up. So, okay, Java Mama mentioned saffron. I was trying to figure out was that a person? Oh, that's a person. Sorry. I thought somebody was talking about growing saffron because some people do. I haven't tried. I have a friend who's trying. I don't know how well her plants are doing. Terry's my tomato and she has great legs. Is she very leggy? She might need more sunlight, Tyler. Oh dear, you guys are funny. See, this is why I like hanging. This is why I ever say, okay, I gotta go. And every time I gotta go, and then I find myself hanging around because you guys make me laugh. Picking off the bottom leaves, the stand on the skinny leg. You're picking off the bottom leaves shouldn't necessarily make it skinnier. They should still get a pretty good stalk on them. Usually the skinnier the leg, the stalk on the plant means the more it's trying to reach for the light. Okay, keeps mildew off, airflow. Yeah, because it does get really humid in the greenhouse, so I open the door and we run a fan when it starts getting like that. And that does help, but yeah. Anyway, for reals, people. For really reals. I should get going. So thank you all for coming in. Again, I really appreciate it. Know you're all busy. You're all doing your stuff. Some of you are listening while you're doing your stuff. That's cool too. So it's always a good time. I hope you enjoyed my topics today. And thanks for coming in. Take care and God bless. Love y'all.